In this video, I'm going to be sculpting a Roman statue. So, to explain a little bit, this is a project for my Ceramics 3 class, and we had to do a sculpture called juxtaposition. So basically, juxtaposition, if you don't know what that is, it's basically where you have to juxtapose two things that are very opposites, and it's a little bit of a complicated project. Basically, what we had to do was we had to take two things that were different in texture, maybe different in emotion, meaning. Something that would juxtapose for that would be like a zombie and bubblegum, which is actually another idea for a future project, so stay tuned for that. But that kind of juxtaposes between the zombie's gory flesh and the detail between a simple bubblegum, where there's no detail. So for my project and this idea, I went with a Roman statue, and then I did a TV sculpture. But I'm not going to talk about how I did the TV sculpture in this video. I'll do that, save that for a separate video. And in this video, I'm doing a Roman statue. So, it's kind of complicated. It started with a lot of clay. I think I used an entire 2 bags of clay, and then I ended up having to carve out the sculptures because I sculpt solid. And then I had to get all that clay back and recycle it in order to use it again. So it's around probably a full bag and a half of clay. Probably a bag to bag and a half. And as you saw, I started with some really thick coils, and then I used as my armature, for the head, I used newspaper, and then an armature I had made in the past just out of wood and a big thick dowel. I just put some newspaper on that and started sculpting away at the head. For the body of the sculpture, I had never done a bust before, but I did just took a bunch of towels, and then I took a bunch of tape, and I wrapped all those towels tightly together, and that was my armature for the bust of the body, the shoulders of the body. And I'll get into the details of that later, but I started with the face, and I looked up a bunch of references of old-fashioned Roman statues, and that was right beside me while I was sculpting this whole thing, just because it's great to look at a reference and know what you should be sculpting, the details of the face. I also do think that sculpting a face is one of the hardest things that I've done in ceramics. Every person looks at faces every day, so like their own face every day, so they can tell when a sculpture of a face or a bust or a Roman statue has some imperfections in it. They can see it very clearly, and that's why I think sculpting a head is kind of challenging, because if you look at it and there's like a nose out of place or an eye out of place, and it's a clearly a clear mistake, then people will be able to pick that up no matter their artistic ability. And so I think sculpting a face is one of the challenging parts of my sculptures that I take on. So I started with the eyes, and I had just roughed out all the details on the face, added a nose and a lips, and then I went in with the eyes and added a lot more detail. What I did for that is I just carved out, as you saw, a circle where the ball, I just made like a ball of clay. I put that in as the eyeball, and then I had taken 2 coils and did a top and a bottom eyelid, and then I just simplified that out. For the last project I had done a face with was my astronaut project, and I added an iris to those eyes. But that's because the reason I didn't add one inside this project is because Roman statues, every single Roman statue I looked at didn't have any irises or eyeballs. They had eyeballs, but they didn't really have the irises of the eyes, or the pupils, I should say, I guess. So I didn't add that. And I tried to attach the head to the body, but I think I did that too fast, because the coils that I had made for the body or the neck squished way down, and so it looked so disproportionate, and so I had to take that off. And I added a few more details to the head with the hair and the tuft at the top of his helmet. And then I had went in with the coils on the top of the bust, just so that it didn't collapse. And I realized I had to combine them when they were leather hard, so I had waited a while until they were leather hard, both of the parts, to combine them, which you will see later. Adding the hair, what I did was I just took a tool, I scratched the surface, and then went back in with some water, and then I just kind of smoothed out all those cracks and crevices to make them smoother and make them look more marble-like, because if you look at the texture in Roman statues, they have a lot of detail, but most of them they don't really look like ceramics. They're like marble statues. It's a little bit different, so I kind of went with that smooth finish to all of the sculpture. I didn't really add any like skin texture, which is going like, pretty far with detail, but I didn't really add much of that just because I didn't find that inside Roman statues. I did add a lot of detail though. And then for the bust, it was actually my favorite part sculpting. So what I went with was like a Roman scarf, like a kind of like a armor. I had looked up a bunch of images for armor too, and what they had worn, and it looks like they wore a lot of chainmail. and they wore a lot of like scarves and like royal things, I guess. So I went with like a texture for the I put a slab on for the texture of the scarf, and then I just smoothed that out with my fingers and just kind of pushed into the coil. It's kind of hard to explain, but I just kind of went with the flow of the fabric and what I thought the folds would look like. And then for the underneath of the fabric, I went with the chainmail, like I mentioned, and what I did was I took a wire. I had shaped the wire into the chainmail shape that I wanted, and then I just used it as a stamp all over the piece. So it didn't take me that long. It just got the texture done pretty well. And then I thought it was time to add the head back onto the neck, but I waited again because I saw that the neck was being compressed down even more because the head was still solid at this point. So I needed to wait a little bit longer. So then I went to school, and I ended up carving it out in class, and as you can see here, it looks a little crazy. I had cut off the face, and I just went at it, just carving the whole thing out. It went from solid to completely hollow in one class period, which took me, I think, like 3 hours, 4 hours. It took me so long. I didn't think it was going to take me this long. It always happens like that, where I don't think it's going to take a while to carve out, and then it takes me forever. But it was finally done. The head was a lot lighter, and so was the bust of the body. I had carved out that too, and this was the final bust before it was put together, and then it's all put together now. So I have a Roman statue. Also, I had thrown the pillar that it's sitting on. I threw that on the wheel, and then I just attached it. The only thing I'm experiencing right now is cracks inside the bottom. That's the only thing I have to fix. There's a little bit of cracks from the pillar and the bust, but I'm so happy with the way this project came out. It's been a lot of fun sculpting these giant sculptures like this. I hope you guys like it too, and I will see you in the next one.